Right, so this is Enterprise One. I'm VanVelding.
And I'm Dr. Isix.
Right, and we're gonna hash out an episode of Enterprise One, Enterprise fanfic thing where everybody's alive and on board Kirk's Enterprise.
Yes, it's glorious. Just like our campaigns through the Klingon Empire.
I'm trying to remember what you're referencing, but I don't know.
Just glory in the Klingon Empire, honor and fighting, and blood everywhere and explosions.
Okay. Is that a pitch or is that?
That just me being excited about explosions.
Yeah.
Anywho, so did you have something you want to start with today? Otherwise, I got something.
Okay, I feel like I've been pitching a lot lately, so let's hear what you got.
Well, this is coming off 1 year pitches, though. So It is the Prime Directive in your notes there. So we got there's sort of colonial assumptions about the Prime Directive and things like that. Is how you started off there, and it's exactly, you just highlighted on the thing there. I can see it. Oh my god!
You can see me highlight stuff.
Yes.
Right.
And
my dark secret: I can't read on the internet without highlighting stuff.
But I think if we're going to have any our sort of ongoing plot, it's maybe about time we get actually kick that off a bit, because we've we've sort of established our dynamics and how this crew sort of meshes together and how it works together. So, having someone now sort of question this and being like, I'm going to run for office or something like that might be the way to go. Spoilers for anyone who's just hearing that bit. But anywho.
Yeah. So the pitch is the Prime Directive. Star Trek needs to talk more explicitly about the colonialist assumptions within the Prime Directive. We do the paternalistic thing with the Planet of the Week, but then we look inside at the Federation's culture and character, and then someone decides that they're going to run for office and make systemic changes within the Federation. Mm-hmm. So that way, instead of always saying, you, alien, even though you represent an encapsulation of a subgroup within our modern culture, which needs to reevaluate their stated goals with their virtues, we're still looking at our home team, our main characters, are telling other people how to live their lives. And so one way to kind of reverse that is to say, hey, we've been messing up. Mm-hmm. So that is the messed up thing. I wanted to pitch you a 3-parter. Okay.
A 3-parter.
We didn't prep this. This is not scripted. This is not okay. Because I just organized my notes today, and I have this quote that I wanted Dr. Crusher to give us.
Okay.
I wasn't going to pitch it yet because I feel like I've been pitched too much. But we almost missed this because we assumed it was another ordinary case. It's the worst mistake to make in medicine. And it's even deadlier for a starship crew. So it's like, hey, we think it's a Planet of the Week episode, but it's not. It's actually a bit more complicated than that. And, maybe we're a little too comfortable looking for the flaws in planets. And so we decide to look kind of inward. That'd be my pitch for it. I don't know if you had a place you wanted to go with it.
So I guess, the starting place is, Planet of the Week, we show up and, we have our crew sort of doing normal sort of Star Trek things, trying to be, it's like this is a planet that we're not quite sure if it's quite falls under the Prime Directive or not here or something like that potentially.
Sure, yeah.
And so maybe that's sort of the initial false mystery at the start, and they sort of got, I guess, sort of similar to the Baku civilization situations, insurrection, some degrees there, but they're actually trying to sort of ask that initial question first. And so you could have a situation where they're starting to get off to do that, and there's like, I guess everything's fine here.
Yeah.
But why did we think it wasn't fine?
Yeah, I kind of like that. I like the Baku from Insurrection. I'm kind of a fan of Insurrection because it
might be a silly movie, but it's actually kind of fun.
It's flawed. But I like the idea of the Baku of actually we're very much advanced. We know all of this stuff. We just don't go to space a lot. It's like, how's that fit on your Prime Directive thing?
It's a big hole in it, apparently, huh?
Yeah, it's it does call into question, as little as the episode takes it, that movie has a lot of themes about indigenous people's rights. Because literally, like, the plot of that movie is that America does its thing with indigenous peoples. And, like, it explicitly questions that, but it doesn't really question the faults in the Prime Directive. So it'd be good to do something like that. I think it'd be cool.
All right. So we can sort of, start it off there. But but sort of in this investigation, this examination very quickly sort of wraps back into the goings on the ship itself. And so you start having the sort of the internal problem there. That's sort of the main bit of the episode there. So is that what I'm getting from you as far as your vibe there for kicking this off? This three-parter epic.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Because each one should be self-contained. I think that's a virtue of Star Trek. I don't like burn me at the stake. I'm not a big fan of episodic Star Trek. I'm a big fan of serialized Star Trek. There's lots of good Star Trek that is serialized, but I think it should be episodic at its core. So yeah. I like it where our first part is, hey, who are these guys? Does the Prime Directive apply? Let's make Commander Riker look like one of them, beam him down, and then covertly observe these people, and then we kind of process that amongst our crew, and then we reach a very wrong conclusion at the end, right?
Yeah.
Because then we are doing the colonialist assumptions, and we don't question it because it's Star Trek. Like, Star Trek does that all the time. So it's taking all these tools that we're used to and just going, hey, but what if it's wrong? And it's also kind of a metaphor for people who don't, especially minorities who don't have a seat at the table. When they're not at the table, the people who are making those decisions kind of make it on their own inertia with their own assumptions. And that perspective is important. And so it's also a story about our heroes doing stuff we don't ask ourselves about. But then at the end, we do ask ourselves about it. We're like, we made all these assumptions without them, without like their real input. We filtered everything they gave to us. That might be interesting. So the voice that eventually says, hey, well, either they can screw something up. They can say, we're going to do this, and then that goes badly somehow for that society. They get found out by the society, maybe?
Well, there's getting found out by the society, or there could be even sort of we're really uncertain about a specific thing, and if it's option 1, then we can make first contact. If it's option 2, we shouldn't. And so they sort of try to provide like a passive test or something like that. And the answer comes out maybe like neither option that they're expecting.
Yeah.
And so they're like, what are we even doing here? And then, the side effect of the test is actually negatively impacting the society there, where they thought beforehand that it was going to be completely all right.
Yeah. I like that. Get found out society. So I think we should probably have some fake outs, right? Like 1 or 2 things go wrong, but then they just form like a new theory where they're like, oh, it's just this other thing that's kind of rare. And then eventually they have a test that fails, big, like undeniably. Mm-hmm. Like they get kind of like groupthink, where people in groups will like kind of support this decision and go further and further along when they need to stop and reassess it.
Yeah.
So
they've had some assumptions that they've really kind of gotten married to at the beginning, but they kind of need to toss them, and they're not.
Yeah. And those assumptions are, the more colonialist, I don't say Federation supremacists, but perhaps more elitist assumptions about, other civilizations.
So here's maybe a interesting twist that a lot of the sort of Prime Directive stuff is, if they're pre-warp, then this is the rules. If it's post-warp, then these are the rules. If they want to join the Federation, then these are the rules. So the pre-warp thing, though, is kind of arbitrary. But so let's say, what if there's a civilization that has figured out faster than light travel that is not warp?
Okay. It's reasonable that the Prime Directive would apply. I mean, I would think that the logic of the warp barrier is that they're going to find out, they're going to come to us, so we should go to them instead. Mm-hmm. So any kind of FTL travel, unless we get to the real edges of it, like what if they're sending out cold sleep ships, generation ships?
Yeah. So there's generation ships. There's recall in Enterprise, there's actually Just turn the engines on as much as possible and hope we run into somebody before we run out of food.
Yeah. What if they don't have like an organized warp program? What if it's just, I don't want to say one guy with a hot rod, but like they colonized the moon, and like their moon colony, they thought it died, but their moon colony actually is like, well, we can't go back to our planet for some reason. It could be Saturn or Jupiter or Pluto, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then they develop warp travel, and it's easier, not warp, but FTL travel, and it's easier for them to warp travel to other planets than it is for their home planet. Again, maybe there was a wormhole. See, that's a separate culture, though.
Well, I don't want to lift it entirely from Stargate, but something
Mm-hmm.
sort of that sort, perhaps. That they figured out a way to sort of put a gateway access point on other planets that they can land on, or sort of beam over to or something like that. But every time they try to send them back to their home world, it gets shot down or something like that. The whole world's like, oh no, it's aliens invading, shoot it down or something like that. So this colony, never is able to get reestablish good contact, and there's maybe some sociological reason for that. So they have this effective means of basically traveling light years away with this technology, but so they are technically getting out beyond their solar system, but they're just not doing it with ships.
We could do von Neumann probes. I like the gates because you can kind of say, well, yeah, they can use the gates, but maybe it's like circumstances. I don't want to pull Warhammer into Star Trek, but I mean, they have warp technology that use their warp, which is like some kind of subspace realm or whatever, which is unreliable. So sometimes you just can't travel certain ways in Warhammer because of some other dimension that they use to do that. So maybe something like that. And they're like, well, they can't do it now, but in 10 years, their gates are going to work because of the thing they're using. So
you can always pull some magic from Discovery and say like, oh yeah, it's making use of this mycelium network or something like that. And they haven't finished mapping it or something like that. Potentially an option of sort of real-time navigation, or you could be very, very slow about it, and you have technically figured out the technology, you just don't have a complete map to where you're trying to send your gates yet.
And that and the warp thing, warp gate thing, are both situations where we're like, okay, you are imminently going to travel to other worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're back to square one. But why do we wait? Because we believe, based on some American mythology, Star Trek believes that if we go to the natives with all of our technology, they're going to just completely misuse it, right? Or that will be seen as gods, or that will be culturally oppressive to them.
Yeah, or exploitative, yes. It's like, oh yes, we'll give you this replicator. We just also want all your dilithium.
Well, like that seems like that's not something the Federation would do. But there is an issue of, consent, where it's like, hey, look, here's replicator technology. Here's medical technology that will let your people live longer. Also, we would like to exchange for these glass crystals you guys have. And it's like, well, are they giving us the replicators? Are we selling Manhattan for beads, right? Mm-hmm. To use, historical myth. I don't know how factual that is. Or are we saying, hey, look, if we don't give them these crystals, are they just going to take our replicators away? Because this planet can't make their own replicators. It can't make all these medicines overnight, right? Mm-hmm. So they're still generally dependent on the colonialists, like the outsiders, to provide this stuff. So when suddenly, your life expectancy jumps 40 years and you have educational opportunities that are given ostensibly for free, and they're like, well, we would like something in return, which I think is reasonable. Not to say, hey, look, we gave you all the stuff, you have to give us this stuff back, but it's reasonable to say you're part of the galactic community. Here's what you can give the community back. And for that to be made from a position of such inequality, I think there is a fair question of are they exploiting these people or not? And Star Trek chooses to say, we're not going to exploit them because we're not even going to talk to them.
We're kind of at that point where we are trying to talk to them. So,
and Star Trek also, I don't know if they ever actually say this, but my assumption has been, as someone who's from the South and has a conservative upbringing, if we give all of these people this technology. Will they be incentivized to improve upon it? Will they handle it responsibly? And are they socially, using a really loaded term, are they socially developed enough that they're not going to use it to make a bunch of starships and murder us all with our own technology?
Well, that'd be an interesting plot twist, but yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it'd be a really boring plot twist because it's full of a bunch of cynical, violent assumptions.
Yes.
I think the Krogans do that in Mass Effect, and they do that to tell an interesting story. The Krogans and the Genophage in Mass Effect are like a kind of an example of why you don't do that. But then they uplifted the Krogan specifically to fight a war for them. And somehow, if you guys aren't familiar with Mass Effect, the Krogans became violent.
Dun, dun, dun.
Weirdly enough, the species that they introduced to the galactic community for the express purpose of being an army wasn't super great at peacetime. Go figure.
It's like, well, we're been sort of put here to fight things, and you're telling us not to do that? What? That doesn't make any sense.
Mass Effect is a great argument for the Prime Directive.
So I think I might have a way to sort of wrap some of this together, though. So if we have the situation where there's the home planet, and there's the moon that's doing all the experiments with the warp gates or whatever, right?
Okay.
Maybe the assumption that they get wrong at the very beginning is that these are both a united civilization. Like the entirety of the planet's united already. This moon is just sort of doing its thing, but they don't realize that they're not really talking to each other at all.
Okay, all right.
And so they they do their research, and it's like, okay, we're starting to figure out that they're basically at that breakthrough stage. And this is kind of coming out of nowhere for us. We didn't think they were going to be doing any sort of FTL for centuries potentially, but they're going to be. They've already sent out their first wave of gates to other star systems, so we better be getting ready for when all this starts coming about. And so instead of going to the moon and talking to the people there working on the gate system, they go to the planet and start up the first contact procedure. And they're like, what? And so they're trying to sort of and so they're going through, and they do sort of trying to do their little bit of tests, whatever, to sort of make sure everything is going as properly as they think it should be. And they have but they realize perhaps too late that they are talking to the wrong people.
Okay.
And so they've already started making. It's like yes, we'll if you want to join the galactic community, then we'll have this sort of exchange of things and all that. And eventually, that kind of comes up to like, so. How do you actually travel around? We'd really like to get in on that. I'm like, well, it's like you guys have this gate system, and like the what now? A twist there. And it's like, and so you sort of lay out that there's this sort of overpowering sort of thing going on as far as the differences and sort of relative influence of the situation, but it's more extreme than they even realize. And it's sort of like, okay, so maybe this warp barrier thing is an important sort of milestone. But even so, these folks are only just slightly below that milestone here, and it's going to be going all sorts of craziness here.
I can kind of see that. So easily instead of go, oh yes, well, you've developed these gate systems, and you're going to be going to other planets. So they go, we usually contact planets whose people are going to imminently be traveling among the stars. So our assumption is it's the gates. Yeah, that's the gates they know about. And they're like, oh yeah, no, we're super cool guys on the planet. We're making rockets and stuff. Oh yeah, imminently space. So we take that instead of talking like the specifics, we kind of botch it. But I like that.
So it's okay. And so maybe the damage is then that the people on the planet think that whatever technology they're working on right now was going to take them to the stars.
Yeah, but I don't want to. That's the goal is that we kind of
potentially all they need.
We lowball these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of we're not sure if they're ready for it yet, and that's kind of the condescending assumption of the Prime Directive. So our goal shouldn't be we should break the Prime Directive, and it turns out that's actually okay. It's not the end of the world. And not in terms of, oh, this is an exception because Klingons gave people guns, or, oh, this is an exception because they were going to kill Wesley. It's kind of an exception. There's like, oh, the Prime Directive itself isn't that big of a deal. It's based on a lot of assumptions we should be asking ourselves about. And it also, when we do that, it allows us to go, oh, God, we've broken the Prime Directive. All of these terrible things that happen when you break the Prime Directive are going to happen now. And maybe they even do damage control, some kind of like, well, what if we just beam up all of the people we just talked to and have Dr. Pulaski erase their memories?
Damn you, Dr. Pulaski.
Say they were out in the Pacific Mountains and they were abducted by aliens, and then we discredit them, and then we can undo the damage of breaking the Prime Directive. And that's kind of our good guys path they go down. That's not so great.
And so
but then it turns out like
fix the damage, but there's no damage to actually fix.
Right, and that's the revelation they have to eventually come to, that these people aren't just idiots. They're not going to take all this technology and build 20 Defiants. They're not just going to give up doing anything for themselves and become intergalactic trash. I think as Admiral Cartwright warned us, they're just going to be okay. It's fine. But what the Enterprise crew was ready to do, ostensibly for the own benefit of that planet, may have been pretty scary stuff, changing their culture, affecting scientific papers.
It's like we've already been in contact with these leaders. And so, there's all these things that they're it's like, we have to fix this somehow. And there's sort of a desperation coming through. And so, they're about to sort of pull the trigger on this until finally someone sort of goes, maybe we should rethink this. And then so and so it sort of pops into our fresh sort of tangent here, where someone's getting kind of disillusioned to this sort of orthodox view of things, that this is a very important starting place, but the Prime Directive should not be the end all be all. It should be the starting sort of principle of how we sort of interact with people, but not something that causes us to do more harm than good.
Yeah, and what would be interesting? Okay, all right, so the deal is that we're going to go down the rabbit hole, and you're like, what if they test the society to see what will happen, to gain more cultural information? So they're kind of interfering. They're doing these tests. They're infiltrating things. They're maybe discrediting people. And at some point, someone, I feel like I want to say Rand, because I feel like we haven't used her yet, and I like the character. Yes. She's an underrated character in the history of the series, and she's a badass. She's great. So what if Ensign Rand, I want to use like a real outsider character. Kira's a member of the Bajoran militia here. I think she's a great candidate. We used her, 2 episodes ago. Rose, another good outsider. Odo's a good outsider. Maybe Data. I think Data's a little overused. The EMH, who's a little overused. Like another outsider character like that. You can just say, hey, I mean, we could use Geordi for that different perspective. I think it's a little spot on in that way. It's like he doesn't have to be like an alien or anything. He can just be someone who's a little different to look at that scenario and go, hey, we're going to go off script on this. We think some of our assumptions might be wrong. And then we can actually take an alien a native that we're working with, and then put in Rand and someone else and say, hey, we're actually going to question all of these assumptions. And we're going to say, maybe it's not so bad. And maybe the awful things that we're preparing to do on behalf of this planet aren't necessary. And so we get kind of a gut check, and we go, oh God, we were going to like wreck people's lives and mess with their brains. And I don't know if our heroes are allowed to plan on killing anyone.
Yeah, but, if they're worried that, this one particular figure is maybe going to be, trying to leverage this into a takeover of the world government or something like that. And so, that would be irreparable damage. And so you'd have to figure out some way to make him not do that. And the only way we could figure out is either you kill him or, damage him in such a way that no one will take him seriously. So
you're implying damage to his reputation.
Reputation, or potentially, physical damage of the brain sort.
Yeah, that would be super messed up. But no, like that'd be a messed up thing to do. But that would be on the table. I mean, we're not killing him, are we? Mm-hmm. That's surely altering this guy's brain chemistry, or this lady's brain chemistry. I mean, it's better than the alternative, isn't it?
The alternative is, either they're dead, which is bad, or a lot of other people are dead. That's also bad.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. It could cause social upheaval. I mean, you can talk yourself into doing a lot of bad things for the ostensible good of other people, simply because, you've been given these awful consequences.
So I think we have a very good shift plot here with a little bit of Beta coming in to help out with some things. So maybe them working together a tad. And so you have on the Rue shift, you got your Geordi already. You got your Pulaski who's going to be meddling with people's brains. You have Kira who's kind of like, I don't know about this, guys. And then you have Wesley who's always up for craziness. EMH and Data, which have their ethical programs that are on one level. It's like, okay, this is how the rules are. This is how we're supposed to be following them. And so it could very much lead to a situation where both of them are very much in a situation where their logic is coming to these horrible conclusions, and it's like, oh yes, Dr. Pulaski, we should be doing that given this situation here. And then it isn't until that new perspective is sort of added in that they go, oh, holy crap! You can even have a moment where everyone's down in the meeting room and they start to look at each other, and the EMH suddenly looks very depressed, and Data's like, huh. I think I understand now.
Kind of a slow realization thing.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to do Rand.
That's why I was saying we could have a 2-shift sort of setup here, because this is like a bigger episode than a lot of the other ones here, so maybe Beta shift is the one that's been doing a lot of this, the stuff on the planet, interacting with people, while the Rue shift has been more managing things from on the ship. And so, they're having the meetings times while Rand is sort of there on the ground, sort of experiencing this culture firsthand.
So, and that would put, the Beta shift would kind of be the guys with our preconceptions that have to reevaluate them. And the Rue shift are the ones that come in with like maybe different perspectives, or the other way around.
I think we could sort of do it either way, honestly. It just kind of depends on how we sort of order events.
Okay. So we don't necessarily need one shift to be like on top of things and one shift not. But we can have individuals who bring that perspective. Because again, like a lot of people we named are on those 2 shifts. I'm just opening up this thing now. Belana Torres has had a whole storyline about seeing things from a different perspective. Kess is an outsider, clearly. Major Kira, Pulaski, Geordi, Data, EMH, they're all on there. So, I mean, a lot of these people are outsiders, but yeah, like Star Trek's kind of built that way.
Yes.
So okay, all right. So, I think we've got the broad points of our story. So, what we need now is we need action and we need character arcs, right?
So I guess for the character arcs, we should probably narrow down some of the folks that we're going to be sort of focusing on for that. So, Rand, Geordi, anyone else specifically?
Someone we haven't used a lot to date. Kess is in there. Belana Torres is in there. I don't think we've used the EMH for anything.
Not really. No.
We kind of used Geordi 2 weeks ago. Geordi and Kira, I think. All of Rue Shift was on the story about the artist and the machine and things.
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
So maybe lean a little bit more heavy on the Beta shift as far as interesting character stuff goes then.
Yeah, I think we ought to. Except for maybe the EMH. I think we give the EMH a pat. Did we do anything with him?
Not a whole lot so far.
Okay, all right. I'm famously not a fan of Voyager. I don't want to overlook the EMH simply because of my bias against Voyager.
Well, he was involved in the Artist Collective stuff, if I recall, right?
Was he? Okay.
It was sort of like, hey, this is pretty cool stuff over here. Because, he's a patron of the arts, and, he likes his opera and things like that. Oh,
so he is, yeah.
Right. Data's the painter, EMH is the singer. So, and also Robert Mercader also shows up on Stargate, so it's in theme here.
yeah, doing all those Stargate things. I'm sorry, I look at Beta Shift and I want all of them. I mean, look, you have Lieutenant Commander Picard, Ensign Yar, Senior Technician Kess, Crewman Belana Torres, Lieutenant J.G. Nyota Uhura, and Lieutenant J.G. Rand.
Kind of a whole lot of awesome.
I mean, yeah, I want to give all of these characters great stories because they deserve them.
Well, let's start on one side of the chart and go to the left or right side.
I guess left to right.
All right, so that's her on the left, right?
Yeah.
So what's Uhura's lesson for this episode?
So I think the thing is that we need to have a character who's pushing forward with this, saying we have to get this done. We need to protect this society according to our preconceptions of protecting the society. So, Uhura, as a member of the operations division, handles shipboard functions. She makes gear, anything that's not involved with the engines or flying. She does the technical part of that. She's kind of in the engineering division. Not engineering, but she does the data stuff.
The everything but engines department.
So she can be analyzing the gateways. She can be analyzing the technology of the people, and she can also talk about their music. She's a singer.
Yes. So maybe part of her arc for this is that she's the one that starts to realize, this, the moon and the planet are the same people, the same species, but their civilizations are technically starting to diverge and it's quite obvious in their technology. The moon tech is very based on this, and the planet tech is starting to be much more based on this. And they are, they have a very recent common ancestor, but it is, quite a difference of where it's going to be taking them in the next, few decades and things like that. And so what does that mean for Uhura? This is something she discovers, but what does that mean for her?
Well, reaching back into the deep canon of Uhura, we have nothing.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, like that. Like, we didn't do that. Please don't be angry at us. We didn't do that. So maybe we should generate some. Maybe we should, if we had something to go in with the books. Like, if there were more books about Uhura, maybe I would have read them, but I don't recall there being any. She serves in Starfleet at every turn. I read Black Fire, which is one where it's either Black Fire or Prime Directive. No, Black Fire, Spock becomes a pirate. In Prime Directive, they break the Enterprise because there are telepathic mecha ants on the moon of this species, which is about to go to warp. And they trick the planet into going into a nuclear winter. Anyway, it's a really cool story. Everybody leaves Starfleet, except I think for Uhura, because she wasn't really involved in it too much. So, and even in Star Trek 3, we see that she's still in Starfleet, and she seems like a stalwart Starfleet officer, is what I'm saying. Whereas everybody else is going to go off and do crazy stuff.
So she's at one side very by the books, but also very loyal to her crew and things like that.
I think that's fair. I think it's a good way to take for it. She's also, a very warm human character, where she knows how to pick with Spock a little bit in a good way. Leonard H. McCoy, and so I think it's part of her charm. She's definitely of this universe. She might be a model Federation citizen now that I think about it.
Well, then she can be sort of our stand-in for the Federation as a whole in some ways.
I can see that. Just kind of having these assumptions and going, hey, I'm, as a base, sympathetic to these ideals that we have, but I'm willing to question them when you give me enough evidence. Mm-hmm. And she's even willing to seek out that evidence as well.
So I've just noticed something. So, we could have a situation where Uhura and Rand are sort of talking about their assumptions and things like that, and Geordi's there. So if you still want Geordi in the story, we could still have him there because they share a room. We can do it.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
They do. Oh my God.
The junior officers' quarters.
Yeah, that's great. I can definitely see that. So they can have a little discussion in the room where they crack the case. Mm-hmm. That's a great vertical. I love it. So yeah, let's do Rand, Uhura, and Geordi.
Cool.
Okay.
And so we can make that like the pivotal scene as far as, all right, we're going to start changing up what our actually formula is here. And so Uhura is sort of now goes from the Federation, Starfleet, all the way, man, to okay, maybe we should be thinking about these sort of things, and our assumptions might not necessarily be as solid as we thought here. But so maybe trying to do the right thing is still in the spirit of the Prime Directive, even if it's maybe not necessarily in the words of it. And then go ahead.
I can definitely see a situation where Nyota or Uhura and Rand have these pieces, and they're talking about their pieces, and Geordi's there, like getting up or going to bed or whatever, and he's like, "Hey, if you guys talk about the planet, like here's that different perspective that changes everything." And so the three of them are like, hey, we've been doing this all wrong. And so those are our story beats, but our dramatic character action beats where, like you said, Uhura starts off, maybe even pushing for like the traditional view a little bit, but then goes, nuh-uh, we have to learn how to have our values, but then also question their assumptions that they're based on.
Because we also have in Beta Shift Picard, so maybe Uhura goes from backing him up fully on some of the decisions he's making here, and then go to questioning him outright there, and so she's maybe now sort of balancing his his thought process there, so it's not all one sided anymore, which is a little depressing when you think about it in some ways, because Picard should be better than that. But
well, I mean, this is Lieutenant Commander Picard, and Picard as written is a bit of a Mary Sue, so there's nothing wrong with making him flawed. Hey, he wanted to move all those Native Americans from that planet on the DMZ, and he was willing to sick Worf on them. So like he can definitely like be hard charging for that and kind of be brought around. But the character bits that kind of bookend that are, I like these characters so much. I don't want to give them flaws so that they can learn a very valuable lesson, which is kind of necessary for them to have an arc. And maybe so you kind of want them to have like a personal arc where they're like, okay, we haven't questioned our assumptions. We want to go deeper. What's the personal story for that? How is it that, this is cool? Like Uhura was maybe with like another Prime Directive that went bad, right? Potentially. When she was younger. So.
And so maybe, that's as hinted at early on that, the reason that she is backing up Picard so much on this is that, they messed up previously. And she's like, I don't want to make the same mistake again. And then kind of comes the realization, this is a completely different situation with very different sort of things going on. I can't just be held back by that previous experience anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And we get some of Uhura's background, and she has like experience that we see and that we talk about that's centered in the episode. And then, we also learn, hey, this experience is not totality. You have to kind of deal with your losses to move forward.
So I think that works for Uhura there.
Yeah. Okay.
So we still got several other characters we should be poking at.
Yeah. I think we have like 11 minutes left.
I got like 17 on my clock here.
Okay. All right. I'll go with that. So
Rand?
We also have a character that we want to get into politics at the end of this, right? Mm-hmm. Not even like big national politics, like her home of residence. When you're in the military, you have a home of residence. Is where you vote from. You have like a current address and they mail stuff there. But once you're done, they kind of assume that your home of residence is the place. So Rand has a home of residence somewhere. Geordi has a home of residence somewhere. I assume Geordi grew up on starships, but
yes, it's probably Starbase somewhere.
I mean, maybe that'd be interesting. So either one of these characters could run for like political office, like not even like, federal reps or Starfleet council, just like some local thing. Maybe even some political.
Yeah, most politicians start off with sort of lower ranks there. City councils, state reps, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, Geordi going from Starship brat who doesn't care about his home of residence to actually, I am rooted in a specific place. These people are my community. And I want to represent them. That'd be hard for any character in this series because they have got a home port, I guess, at Starbase 47, but they don't really have a community which they can represent because they're part of the Starfleet community.
So it's sort of maybe one of the things then to sort of think about as we go forward with this is, what does that mean to be a representative?
Well, maybe they're a Starfleet liaison, which means, Starfleet itself is a community, right? Mm-hmm. They should be represented politically. It would be reasonable for there to be some kind of bureau or posting or something like that where like, hey, this fleet is going to have a person who interacts with Starfleet policymaking on behalf of this Starfleet community. And we assume that would be a captain, but it doesn't have to be. It could be any officer who can run and get elected.
Indeed.
Might be unusual.
It could be much more, very entertaining that, the grizzled captain who's been in Starfleet for 70 years or something like that is being challenged for their for the position by a junior tech or something like that.
Lieutenant junior grade, yeah, or junior tech, yeah. And then that means that Geordi doesn't have so much of an arc there, because if Geordi had to put down roots, that's an arc. If Rand, who we don't know anything about, has roots, and she picks them up to say, no, my home of residence is the USS Enterprise, that could mean a lot more for the character. You know what I mean?
Indeed, yeah. And if we're doing a fair bit of stuff in their quarters, maybe early in the episode, we could sort of establish some more of these character sort of details here for both Uhura and Rand.
Yeah. And it'd be like, politics as like a C-level storyline, right? Which is only important at the end once Rand goes, hey, I think we need to reevaluate some stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of have that. Star Trek is, they're not even neutral on politics. Politics don't even exist unless it drives a plot.
And usually it's plot that, someone's made a terrible decision and now we got to move those Native Americans. Uh-oh.
Yes, darn those politics. Let's stop them and then never participate in politics again. I'm like, you guys are missing a step here, aren't you?
Yeah. Why
is the Federation getting worse? Maybe because you didn't run for Federation president, Jean-Luc. Okay, sorry. So that's what we're trying to fix. I like that for Rand. Like, Rand talks about letters from home and how her home of record's still wherever it is. It could be Alpha Centauri, it doesn't necessarily need to be. And she's like, they're my home, Federation thing. I can't believe whoever's running. It could be Bashir. She could beat Bashir in a political election. So someone else is maybe, huh? So yeah, or someone else is, but over the course she sees all this and she's like, I guess the button at the end of our episode is she's filing the paperwork and she's going to run against whoever from the USS whatever to be the Starfleet liaison.
So we have lots of other captains out there that aren't on this particular Enterprise, right?
Yeah.
So we have two really kind of obvious options for who that other person they're going to run against is.
I'm guessing
Jellicoe?
Both from TNG. Yeah,
Jellicoe is one.
Yeah,
and the other one's actually Captain Pike.
That's a heck of an ask. Because Pike's great.
Yeah.
I mean, new Pike, Discovery Pike is great. Old Pike is a misogynist.
Yes.
I mean, he's a silver fox. He's a bit of a daddy. You can edit that if you like, but he's definitely a misogynist. New Pike is all of those things plus cool. So yeah, that'd be interesting because it would be easy to have Rand run against Jellicoe, who's not likable, who owns a MAGA hat.
Oh,
probably.
it could even it could be Rand running against both of them too.
I don't know what our future story is going to be. We could do that.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to necessarily pin this down right now. Just like, I'm going to run for this position. It's like, I've heard there's a few people tossing their hats in. Maybe one or two of them might be relevant at all, but we'll see.
Well, it's more dramatic if they're an incumbent, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I love Pike. I just love the suggestion of Pike. It's absolutely great. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of that.
So Rand is going to run for office. We still got so many minutes and so many characters to get through here. So Torres, so she's all about the engineering and navigation and making the ship go. So how does she sort of fit into this here?
I assume that there are some warp dynamics, some space-time dynamics similar to subspace fields and the phlebotinum that warp drives run on. So I think she would be working kind of arm in arm with Uhura. So we've got two strong story arcs, and we kind of have our story hammered out. I feel bad that we're kind of I'm calling for us to just say, hey, we're running short on time, and I think we've got two good dramatic arcs, and we've got our story broken generally.
Well, I did want to sort of toss in that for Kes, we could have this sort of being her first sort of real full first contact situation that she's been sort of ever really involved in here. So she can sort of be the one who's there asking a lot of questions.
Oh, that's absolutely great. I love it. She's a senior tech,
Sometimes
so she'll be a little older, but
and so some of these questions might, get an answer from one of the other characters, but then later when the character is like, wait a moment, does this even make sense? So it sort of gets their thinking started.
Yeah, Kes can pull a lot of unexamined assumptions out of our crew that we can then examine later. You did ask about Torres, and we do need a dramatic quotient here. Not dramatic, but action. Some kind of...
Well, if there is going to be, our crew are going to be trying to enact a plan that's going to basically destroy a number of people's lives in order to try to save the civilization that is completely unnecessary, then Torres and Tasha Yar can very easily be sort of the muscle for some of that and be very much involved in trying to secure the various targets. And when the stakes get raised where they're trying to secure one of the targets and something horrible happens, either the target is horribly injured or one of them is, or they get captured or something like that. And so we got a sort of it's like, okay, oh no, we got this other thing that's sort of now a pressing matter here, and it's sort of distracting from the ongoing sort of conversation for a little bit.
Yeah, we can definitely have an operation where, like, we need to go in and get the guy, and they do like a cool operation. And it's like 99% successful. And Yar's doing Yar things, doing the high kicks with the stunt double, and like doing cool Yar stuff. And like it failed. Like there's something, one of our unknown unknowns about this culture, or our bad assumptions about this culture, it falls through. It screws us, and the mission fails because, again, we didn't know something. And so either we get to another point where we have to question the assumptions, or we have to kind of double down on our bad assumptions to date. I can definitely see Yar and Kira being on that. I mean, Torres has never been like, I'm a Klingon warrior. She's always been kind of like, she could pilot the ship, and then she could be in peril, right? Because she's like got a cloak shuttle, and she goes down there, and someone finds out about it or whatever. I think that'd be a good line. Yeah. I mean, Riker goes on missions all the time. I know it's because he's the XO, but there's no reason for him to go on like combat missions. So Starfleet sends whoever they send on combat missions. So that could include Torres.
So Yar as the muscle there, but Torres as the driver, and Kes as the brain fiddler.
Yeah, I could see that. So that'd be a pretty cool little action arc and a way to get those characters engaged in the story. Picard's kind of like managing, so I like that. Did we do it? Do we have some time left?
I think we have a few minutes left here, but not many.
All right.
Like 4. So I'm gonna toss in a cameo from Malcolm Tucker from Enterprise. So if we need someone else in the shuttle, he could be sort of just there.
Yeah. No, I get my assumption. I haven't really made it explicit. Is that other characters from any other Trek, including Eric's from the animated series, could just be in the background or fill in or deliver, just like whatever. It's just like we're having a hard time covering all the 24 characters we have here, 36 characters. So it's like to do everybody would be taxing. But yeah, no, it'd be fun to have Tucker in there doing some stuff, being like a specialist on first contact era, first gen, second gen warp drives or whatever.
Any other sort of fun details we should toss in then?
Great question. We're using a lot of characters that I don't think have been developed a lot, so it's hard for us to give. I put Yar and Picard on this team simply because they have a mentor-mentee relationship in TNG that's a little underplayed. Yes. So I'd always want a little more of that. Picard versus Rand.
Have some of that here.
Picard versus Rand. I think they're both kind of strong flavors, especially when you make a younger Picard. I could definitely see them getting into it because, again, they're both really cool characters. So having them argue, some point of what they're doing. Rand is a mission specialist, which means she's usually the one who's fully briefed on whatever the situation is, and they're kind of the do anything team.
Yes.
So their job is to kind of bring up these options and say, well, when you do a deep dive on what we've got, it's like this, and this. So, and Picard can go, well, our policies, this, that, and the other thing, and so they can kind of clash there.
Yeah, because he goes, Picard's sort of in the science division, but he's also technically in charge of the shift, and so he's sort of calling the shots here, unless we need to have Kirk swoop in at some point.
Right, right. So yeah, and so like he's de facto in command, unless like you said, Kirk swoops in. So I think we're good. I think all we need now. Are there any other interactions? Yeah, I would just say title. Ready to title.
Well, I think there's opportunities for lots of interesting interactions just across Beta Shift. Kess and Uhura. Yeah. I don't know what that would look like, but I'm interested to find out.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's partially because of how women are written in Star Trek, and this crew is like 84% women. But like they always write women as being fairly easy to get along with, except for Pulaski. So like it's hard to like generate that conflict because men in Star Trek can be like, and you have very few women in Star Trek who are like, So like it'd be pretty easy to just imagine these people getting along. Even though they're diverse characters, like maybe Yar Torres would be kind of our conflict points there. Because again, I could definitely see Yar saying some white people shit about B'Elanna Torres, being like, "Oh, yeah, no, I've trained with Cleons before. It's super cool. What's your house crest?" And Torres is like, "Shut the fuck up." I don't like my ideal Star Trek episode is not Yar committing microaggressions against B'Elanna Torres. That's not my point. I'm just saying. Like there are assumptions you can make, and in doing so, you can kind of develop those characters.
I think to a certain degree, Yar would maybe get along with Torres, but might not necessarily be the reverse all the time.
So yeah, I haven't watched all of Voyager. I've watched maybe half of Voyager. So my impression of Torres has always been, yeah, she's prickly, but like she's got a history to that.
Yes.
So like whereas Spock. You could pour soup in Spock's lap and he would apologize. B'Elanna Torres will like look at you getting soup and slap it out of your fucking hand. So, and like that, there are reasons for her to be that way, as I understand. So, yes. And a lot of that is just, her history. And then her story in Voyager seems to be actually kind of gets past that without betraying the character that she is. It's a fine story for Torres to have.
It could have been developed a lot more, but it was developed, yes.
Yeah. And for some reason, the Federation idealism seems to have worked for Yar way better than it's worked for Torres, which is worth an episode in and of itself, really.
Indeed.
We need to crash these two women on a planet in a shuttlecraft so that they can sit there, look death in the face, and tell us some honest truths about each other. In fact, if you want, they can just not get along here, never explain why, and then we can actually just put it to bed later in the season.
All right. That sounds like a plan. Let's make sure we remember to do that.
We will not. All right. So, yeah, we need a title. We need a title really quick.
All right. So we got planets, we got gates, we got prime directive issues.
The greater good seems obvious.
True.
It works on a few levels. It works on the level of Rand working towards the greater good by going into politics. It works on what we think that we're doing. And then the greater good, the prime directive represents a greater good in that society. It could also represent like I'm selling this. I'm selling this too hard. What do you got?
I was sort of halfway thinking like maybe like make it like the secondary directive or something like that, or try to have a play on words there, but it's nothing solid's coming to mind here right now.
We could call it the Primus Directive and just license the music. If you're into late 90s, early aughts rock.
Well, some days, yes.
It's a deep cut for you Primus fans of Enterprise One.
Could always have it be an extra long name. Well, we've had several of those already.
We could. I'm on record for not liking mononyms or like cryptic names. I like long names. So as long as we don't use the words tomorrow or yesterday too much.
Tomorrow is yesterday, tomorrow, yesterday.
God. Why the original series? So we could use the gateway, right? Because the first contact is a way that we are a gateway to the larger universe for certain civilizations. They literally have gateways.
Well, then maybe start right there. A gateway to a larger universe.
We could throw the people's name on it, like the Koblaxian gateways. The gateways of Koblaxia. Koblaxian Gate.
Well,
Koblaxia Gate.
Well, this is maybe also an opportunity to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So maybe the Koblaxian Opportunity Gate.
opportunity in the Coblaxian Gate. They need a better name. We need to get like
okay, yeah. Well, I could try to toss in a reference to something I've written, but I don't know if that's that might cause issues down the road with copyrights.
Look, Yar became Ro, became Kieran Reese. Like, just wear those ideas down until they're smooth, buddy. That's how they get better. The opportunity gate thing doesn't work for it because like it seems discordant. What if like that's their word for it, right? The gateways are the opportunities.
Yes.
Like that's what they call them. That's what the Dahurl. Is that a good name for these dudes?
Dahurl works.
Dahurl opportunity gates.
I was thinking Salila, but I just couldn't come up with a good way to actually pronounce it.
I use a name generator, fantasynamegenerators.com/aliennames.php. All
right, I'll put an R in there.
The Dahurl opportunity.
Dahurl.
Dahurl. Okay.
Dahurl.
It's been Dahurling earlier today. So, what about the Dahurl opportunity? Does that work?
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. Done. Stamped. So.
Time.
Until we see you guys next time.
Whee!